Paul, an amazing journey. What, 10-year run, American Chopper?
10 years, yeah.
On Discovery Channel.
Yeah.
Wild story, you guys, today for you. This is going to be an amazing story. But let's get it started by, let's go, what's up there on that shelf up there on the upper deck? There are 3 bikes up there. Let's talk about them. First of all, let's just jump right into them. The one bike up there, Black Widow. Probably the most famous bike in the world, I would say, man. But tell us about it.
Yeah, I would have to say so. You know, I mean, the Black Widow, to me, the Black Widow is the bike that kind of started it off. If you've watched the show through the years, this was what kicked it off. This is what kicked it off for our series and really started kind of a creative direction of theme building. And, you know, I absolutely love the bike. After 10 years, actually 12 years now, if you see it up there, it's really held up against the test of time. I can't say that for all the bikes that we've built in 12 years ago. Not all the bikes look as good as that one. And I think it's just a testament to the creative and the origin of something. You know, it just kind of kicked off. It kind of set the pace for the way we did things in the future.
You guys like the Black Widow? Look at that thing up there. Let Paul know. Hey. Another bike up there. The Jared Allen bike. It's the bike, Homes for Wounded Warriors.
Yeah. So Jared Allen came to us, and he has a long military history in his family, and he's involved with Homes for Wounded Warriors. So we got together and we did a bike, not only to raise money, but also to raise awareness. You know, for when these veterans come back and they have disabilities, they'll go ahead and transform houses to make it more living suitable for them and make it more comfortable when they come back. And, you know, his attitude in mind is it's the least you can do when these guys come back after fighting for our freedom to make them comfortable when they get back home in their own homes.
So if these guys catch the wind, they might be able to drive that thing this afternoon?
I don't know about that.
By the way, Jared plays for the Minnesota Vikings.
That's right. Yeah.
Big defensive end, crazy guy.
Great guy, really genuinely nice guy.
Nice. Third bike that's up there, you guys. Make sure you get by and see it. It's called Build Off 2. Tell us about Build Off 2.
Build Off 2. I mean, I don't know how many of you guys watch the Build Offs. Well, we got Build Off 2 here. Build Off 1's a bit of a beast to lug around, but you know, what can I say? You know, that's Build Off 2, but I'll talk about Build Off 1, and I kind of want to bring it up because, first of all, it was a live show. I was going against Jesse James, as well as my father. At the time, the relationship really wasn't good. We were still in a really bad lawsuit situation, and I really actually didn't even want to do the first Build Off. But we ended up going through with it anyway, and at the end of the day, we came through and we won as a team because we have a great team of guys. But, you know, we could not have done it without probably a lot of people in this room voting for us because we really relied heavily on the fan base weighing in. And at the end of the day, we were able to pull it off. And so I just want to thank you guys for that. And also for Build Off 2, which ended up being against Jesse James, the Fast and Loud guys, and OCC. And, you know, we went with a creative direction of car theme, right? Because all these guys, my father collects cars, Jesse and the Fast and Loud guys are all about cars. So we figured if we were going to come into a competition, then we might as well have a car-themed bike. We got a 37 Chevy grill on that, and then you can see some of the finer details of it. So we kind of wanted to bring it to them where they lived. And once again, you guys voted, and we came out on top. We're very proud of that bike, so it's a good one.
Awesome. Over the holidays, maybe you all picked up, but on television, inside of some of the biggest games of the postseason, football and more, we kept seeing the Geico bike show up. I think it's called the U.S. Armed Forces bike. Tell us about that.
Yeah, you know, I'll tell you, Geico's been really great to us. They were our very first client as Paul Jr. Designs. You know, when we broke away from OCC, we had a one-year non-compete, and then once we got into bikes, it was a little tricky kind of getting the business going. And these guys believed in us first, and we had done a Gecko bike for them. And then a couple years later, we did the Geico Armed Forces bike, which you may have seen the commercial. They have been airing it a lot around the 4th of July and Memorial Day and things of that nature, Veterans Day. And they're holding on to it. You'll see more of it. But that bike is very special because, you know, they came to us and they said, well, we want to build a bike that represents all 5 branches of the military, and we don't want to leave anyone out. We don't want it to be weighed in any direction for any particular branch. And man, I just honestly, it took me like a week to figure out, what do you do? How do you represent 5 branches of the military in a motorcycle? I mean, you only got so much real estate there, you know? So what we decided to do was go with the challenge coins. We did a gold star front wheel. We put 1 challenge coin for each branch of the military in each of the 5 spokes. And we just did an extremely patriotic theme. And it's one of my favorite bikes by far. And we've done all kinds of military themes, but it's the only one we've ever done that represents all 5 branches. So we were able to pull that off, and then later we did the commercial. So it's been a blessing. I mean, it's been amazing.
Yeah, awesome. Hey, let's dial this whole thing back. You guys looking inside the heart and life, the personal side of Paul, I think you guys are going to be pretty amazed. But Paul, growing up, let's go back to your family. Let's start there. Pretty rough family situation growing up, and in the midst of it, Paul, you found yourself in a spin and you kind of got lost. Tell us a little bit about the family.
Yeah, you know, I mean, growing up, I'm the oldest of 4 boys, and, you know, my father was an alcoholic. My mother was, you know, trying to keep the family together. She was kind of the saving grace of the family. And so I watched my father drink through all those years, and, you know, I knew that I was always afraid as a child. I just remember being very afraid, even at night. You know, I would just be afraid to fall asleep, and there was no stability. And at the time, look, you don't know your father's an alcoholic when you're young. That's all you know. It's your whole world. So you don't realize that until much later. And so, you know, there was just a tremendous amount of dysfunction and instability. And as I got older, I was around 10 years old, and my father got sober. And, you know, that was a whole other transition. He was trying to be in our lives more, but he was trying to figure out who he was at the same time. And, you know, by about that time, I started to follow in his footsteps and started going down the wrong path. And, you know, drugs and alcohol at a fairly early age. I was in rehab at 16. And, you know, it seems to be the generational curse was being followed through on at that time. And so, you know, it definitely was not an easy environment to grow up in, but you could see, even though I hated it as a child, you end up becoming what you hate, and you end up following in those footsteps, or at least I did. And it was a rough road, you know. I was very lost, and I'll tell you, I did this as a Christian. Now, that's the interesting thing. It's not like I did all this and then I got saved. I did this as a Christian. So, you know, one of the things about that was always tough is that you're doing all these things, worldly things, drugs, alcohol, you know, all these things. And at the end of the day, you know in your core that it's wrong, but you're not able to stop. And so it was just a real challenge for many years.
In that journey, Paul, kind of that aha experience, finally you see the light in a different way. God gets a hold of you and starts spinning you in a new direction. And it was this constant tension back and forth. It was a battle for you. Yeah. But you're pressing your heart toward Christ. Talk about what started happening inside of you. It started helping you break out of the depression, the anxiety, the addiction.
Yeah, you know, I think after many years of just kind of being sick and tired of being in this, you know, I knew I was saved and I knew the Lord loved me, but I was in this constant, I was just floundering. I was just struggling. I could not give up old habits. Old habits are what was holding me back from any fulfillment in my life. And the big game changer was when I started to realize some things, and I started to be willing to give up those things that you don't want to give up, the hard things. What are you looking at? You know, for me, it's a lot about what are you looking at? What are you spending your time on? What are you doing when no one's looking? It's about character. It's about integrity. These are things that happen in the secret place in your heart. And when I came to realize that at the end of the day, He sees it all. God sees everything. I think for so many years, you think you can hide from Him. But once you realize that He sees through you, He sees everything that you are, and you start to give up those things and make room for Him, that's when the change started to really take place. That's when I started seeing, it didn't necessarily... It didn't get easier, I'll just tell you right now. It didn't get easier, but it got better. And I mean that from a standpoint of having peace, and He starts to order your steps, and you're in stride with Him, and you're where you're supposed to be. Even though you still struggle and you have these battles, the battles are what builds you up. The battles, the things that you think shouldn't be there are there to build you up. See, we think it's supposed to be a cakewalk because we're Christians. That's not the case at all. We're in this constant process of refining. He's trying to get out all those impurities so that you can be the man that He has predestined you to be.
Willie Robertson's the one who turned me on to Paul. He said, Tim, listen to me. You need to give Paul to Wildfire. He's going to love it, but God's got a hold of him. He's doing something. We're going to talk a little bit more about what God's doing here in just a minute. But I'll tell you what, Willie's a good friend. You know, he loves this guy. He really does. And God's doing something in both of them, creating an amazing platform. Paul, let's talk about your dad. Your dad's big. He's a big guy.
Want to do that?
He's a big guy. He's loud. Paulie, I'm the boss. You're supposed to do what I say. You can hear him screaming at it in the program anymore. I mean, you grew up listening to that stuff. Let me ask you this. Was that on the show? Was that show? Or is it real? I'm seriously.
Well, I could say I wish it was for show. That would have been easier, you know? Yeah, you know, it really wasn't. My father's a volatile. He's just that guy. You know, I grew up with him. He was like that. I worked for him in the steel business for 10 years. And that was the way he is. And, you know, right through all those years. And, you know, I'm not that guy. I'm not to say that in our dynamic it didn't get crazy, because, look, you guys all saw it. This is what, I'm sitting here, we laid it all out there. It's good, bad, ugly. You guys have seen all our laundry and then some. And I think something that's good about that at the end of the day. Now, if I had my choice from the beginning, would we have fought all those years as crazy as it was? If I had my choice, no. Because I don't handle things quite that same way. But our dynamic turned out to be what was so relatable, and why, in part, why so many people watched and why it lasted as long as it did. So, I don't know, man. God put this thing together. So, when it comes down to the nuts and bolts of it, I don't really know why it played out that way, but I can tell you that it's had a tremendous impact because we've been able to lay ourselves out there and just be real.
Yeah, the show American Choppers, you guys, 10 years on Discovery Channel, craziness. So, in the midst of all this insanity, how did that thing come together? I mean, what did they look at seeing you guys and say, we're going to put that on TV? I mean, here's this bizarre, wild family. All kinds of talent.
They didn't know, but here's the thing. When Motorcycle Mania had come out, Jesse James did his first Motorcycle Mania, and that had aired on Discovery. It was doing pretty well. It was something new, kind of original. Remember, there wasn't really reality television like now. Like, everything's reality television. Back then, no one really knew what it was. So they started looking for an East Coast builder, and they had actually landed on a company that was like in New Hampshire or something. And we got a call from the producer, and he said, hey, I got a crew ready to go. I got them going to this place in New Hampshire. I don't have a good feeling about it. I saw you guys on the internet, and they just saw us as a father and son. There was nothing to be known about us at the time. And I think I'd like you guys, you want to film a television show. And I'll never forget that, because I got the call, because there was only 3 of us at the time. And it wasn't long before that I remember sitting down with my father. We had been building bikes for 2 years now. And I remember after watching Jesse's show, and you know, we were really trying to make it. We had some unique products, but relatively unknown. And I remember talking to my father, and I just said, man, who would ever, can you imagine, who would ever want to watch us on television? I said, no one. I said, this guy's got sharks in his tank and his pit bulls are killing each other, and like, you know, we're just like, you know, looking at each other arguing once in a while, and I just felt like there was nothing to us as far as what anyone would want to watch. And literally a couple weeks later, we got that call I just told you about. And sure enough, they came down and started filming. Right out of the gate, we filmed 6 weeks. And then the first episode aired. And they had these motorcycle build-off thing at the same night they had our first episode. And I'll never forget it because we thought we were going to see like a polished out show, you know, like a how-to Bob Vila type, you know, no arguing or anything. We just thought it was going to be, you know, here's how it's all done, and this is the end product. And I think the original episode got cut that way, but someone saw it and said, this is not going to work, and they put all the fight scenes in. You know, we were doing it not realizing it, because after 3 days of the cameras rolling, you fall right back into the habits that you're in with how you carry on. And so we didn't realize that all these explosive fights happened in the very first episode. And so in any event, it airs, and we watch it, and my father calls me, and he says, we're done. I said, I know, we're done. So we went into the shop the next day, and we went around the back, and we had this little old trailer, and we were just sitting there, and we literally had our head, because we were working really hard, and it's a tough business. We were working hard for 2 years to get some notoriety, and we said, man, we blew our one chance. We had our head in our hands, literally, and the emails started coming in that day. And the emails were kind of a new thing back then, but people just responded. They didn't really like my father that much, but they responded just the same. And I think it was the relatability of it all. And that was it, man. Off to the races, you know. And then we did 10 years. So.
You had Orange County Choppers that you guys were a part of there, the business side of it. The journey goes, though, and these guys didn't even know the story. What happened, Paul, when you had the spin and then the brokenness? Fired you, the whole, I mean, all this crazy.
Yeah. Did you guys see that when I got fired? Did you see that scene? They played that a lot. I guess at the end of the day, I was over it. We were, you know, my father, I think he decided that I didn't need to be a part of what was going on there anymore. I could tell you, even through all the instability, I really did think I would stay it out and be a part of that company right till the end. Just my investment there was so huge, you know. And I think that it took us both, you know, and my brother Michael, obviously, and even Vinny, and, you know, all the players. But when you're talking about me and my father, it took us both to really, to make that thing fly. We couldn't have done it alone, you know. So at the end, I think he just decided that it would be better if I wasn't there, honestly. And that's kind of and that was a hard thing to deal with. But it was it was a very difficult thing, because I knew in that separation that what I was giving up, all this investment, like, you know, creating a logo and being a lead designer on all these bikes. And again, you can't do this without a team, everybody here. I mean, you know, God has given me a tremendous creative vision, but I cannot do it alone. And even till today, I mean, God has surrounded me with tremendous people, even back in the OCC days and even now. So I just want to give props to everybody involved. But really, at the end of the day, it's almost like a loss, even past the separation with me and my father, of that company. And then you have to, so you spend all these years trying to build a company, right? And then, now I've been spending all these years trying to get away from that company. And it's kind of an unnatural thing, but God. And God has set this in motion, because I didn't realize how sick and dysfunctional the relationship I had with my father was, because it's all I ever knew. But once I came out of that, it has enabled me to start to grow. It has enabled me to start to not tolerate that level of dysfunction or abusiveness. And from that, you know, a plethora of phenomenal things have happened. The creative flow has been better. There's just been a tremendous amount of great things that have come out of probably one of the worst situations of my lifetime. And that's how God does it. He turns it around.
Paul, if you don't mind, where things at with your dad now?
Yeah, you know, I wish I could tell you it's all good. I really do. I miss my father. I got to tell you, I got to be honest with you, I really do. But it just hasn't happened. I mean, we're not at odds anymore, but we're not. We really don't have much of a relationship. And sometimes you can only do what you can do as an individual in certain situations. And it's interesting because me and my father didn't talk for a long time. And if I'd have met you on a subway and you would have told me, you would have started talking to me and tell me you're not talking to a relative, I wouldn't even have to know you to say, hey, nothing's worth that. You got to get, life is too short. You should be talking to your father, your brother, whatever the situation is. But and I still believe that. But under certain circumstances, it is for a season, it's sometimes better to be away from the unhealthiness so you can get yourself healthy and then maybe revisit that relationship. And I think that's where I've been over the past couple of years, is really trying to get myself together in the absence of the negativity. And then I'm hoping someday, I believe God, that it will happen, that me and my father will be restored fully. And I look forward to that day.
Well, let's shift you. God's given you some pretty crazy gifts. Yeah. Quite a visionary. You're the creative guy on all this. A number of questions came in from a lot of these guys. I tried to distill them down real quick, but one was, do you really make all those parts with your hands? I mean, like Black Widow, I mean, seriously.
Yeah, we really do. I mean, the only thing that we don't build is the motor and trans, and quite often we'll have wheels cut, but we'll do the design for them. Other than that, we build everything in-house. We're able to do an awful lot in a very small space, especially with the right people. And that's the key. God has given me tremendous talent to be able to bring to fruition these, these visions for these different bikes. And God gave me a theme, which I absolutely love, by the way. And a theme makes what we've done for 10 years possible, because if we did the same bike over and over again, you guys would have stopped watching 10 years ago, right? So the theme and the ever-changing relation to whatever it is that we're doing not only helps the look change, but it keeps things relatable for everybody here that's watched for so long.
How long does it take to build a bike? Black Widow, how long did it take?
The Black Widow probably took maybe 6 weeks, but we always had pressured deadlines. It's so interesting because I've learned to be creative under pressure that for most people may be insurmountable. Not only was my father unrealistic about every timeline we've ever had, but on top of that, we had filming as well as unveils for clients. So when you watch for all these years and there was that pressure deadline, we never had to make pretend like something needed to be done sooner than it did, because there were so many moving deadlines and we were so crazy that it was always there, and it was always making good drama for the show,
What's the fastest turnaround you've ever done?
We built a bike in a week.
In a week?
Paint, everything, yeah.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
Do you ride?
I do. Yep. Not as much as I'd like to, but I definitely ride.
You ride those things?
Yeah, those things I don't ride too much, but, I honestly like the Black Widow. I've ridden quite a bit. It's just, you get a pristine, you don't want to ride those. We have so many bikes now, if you go for a ride, you don't want to take one of them out, necessarily.
Rachel, where's Rachel at? See her?
She's right there.
Hey, give it up for Paul's wife, Rachel, right back here, you guys. God brought her into your life. Tell us a little bit about Rachel.
Yeah, she's the game changer right there for me. I mean, God let me tell you something. When He brings the right person, the right woman into your life, it just changes everything, For me, it just changes everything.
You fight with her?
What's that?
Do you fight with her?
Yeah,
she wins,
and I'm a jerk sometimes. But yes, everybody argues sometimes, but I think overall our relationship has been really good. And, you talk about accountability, man, and it's just when God predestines you into a situation like that, the dynamic changes. And God just brought Rachel into my life at a time where I just needed it then, And I got married late in life. We've been married for 3 years now. So, I mean, I'll be 40 this October, which is crazy, right? So yeah, it just, God's timing is perfect. That's all I could say. And she's been the saving grace. And, you know, even, I'll tell you a little background there. So, me and Rachel met at a time where I was kind of like just doing my own thing. This was about 7 years ago. And we had met. And I just wasn't ready. I was running around. I was acting crazy. I was just fulfilling the things in the flesh, you know, and yearning for a strong relationship with the Lord. You know, I knew where I could be, but I wasn't there. And so it was at a time me and Rachel met, and I really at the time didn't think anything of it, you know. And then very quickly I started to realize there was something special, something very different about her. And, you know, we started spending more time together, and before you know it, she moved up. She's from New Jersey, I'm from New York. She moved up, and we moved in together. She moved into my house. And all the while, just knowing it's not good, this isn't the way it should be. And we did that for a couple of years, like a year and a half. And the conviction just took over. And at the same time, we started kind of trying to drift in the right direction, right? Going to church and just trying to get rid of some of the junk. Even though we were living together, we were still we were slowly forging forward. So conviction started increasing. So as you seek the Lord, He keeps speaking to you, you know. In any event, it was really coming down to the wire. We had a lot going on with the lawsuit with my father, and just craziness was going on. And I got a call from a friend who's here today. His name is Michael Guido, and he said, "Hey, we gotta go on a retreat." I said, "Oh man, I got no time for a retreat. You know, I'm busy. Things are crazy." And he said, "Yeah, I think we should really go." And I tried to avoid it. I ended up going on. And I say retreat, me, him, and one other gentleman. We had it at his house. And so anyways, we were talking. We went in the rooms and to pray. And I got so convicted about my intention with Rachel. God just hit me hard. And I made the determination, because I was afraid of commitment. You know, at that age, I was so afraid of commitment for all those years. And finally, God He said, "That's it." And I was convicted. I said, "I know that's it." And I said, "I know she's got to move out." And God said, "That's right, she's got to move out." And so I said, "All right, well." So long and short of the weekend ends, and I'm driving home, and I'm just thinking, how is this going to happen? Because I don't want to ask her to move out, you know. So I said to God, I said, "Listen, God, if you want her to move out, you're going to have to tell her yourself." So I went home, and I felt all swirly about it, because I was like ultra convicted. And I knew I was going to marry her, but obviously I wasn't ready to propose right then and there, because I knew some things had to happen first. So, in any event, so I get home, and it wasn't but 2 days that she rolled over, tears in her eyes. She said, "I got to move out." And God just did it. He really, really did tell her. And, you know, unbeknownst to me, she had felt that way for weeks before I had even gone away. So God just, you just leave a little room for Him. He'll start to work it out. And then sure enough, so what we did was we got Rachel an apartment, just not too far away. We did the right thing. For 9 months, we lived apart. We kept it pure, and we got married. So. I think the message in that is you can get it back. So if there's anyone out there in that situation where you're living together, you can get it back. You don't have to stay in that circumstance, and God will honor it. We honored each other and God, and blessings have been coming. It has not been easy, I'll tell you, but we've been blessed. So,
and you guys are growing in the Lord together. That's what's so impressive. Couple more questions, Paul. What are you up to now? Where do you see yourself going professionally?
Yeah. Well, I can tell you that Right now we're doing something that I can't talk about because it hasn't been released yet, but we're doing more creative things. I think we're going to take creativity to a new level. I think we'll always do bikes, but I think we're going to mix it up a little bit, maybe incorporate some other things. But it's interesting because I would have thought I would know exactly what I'm doing next, and I honestly don't fully know. I know that it's going to I know that it's going to be what God has predestined it to be. I know that in what I'm doing next, God is going to use my skill set. That we have a very unique skill set in what we do. There really isn't many people out there that can do what we do. So I know if we apply that to whatever's next, we'll be good. Innovation, creativity, things of that nature. But I will say this, it's very interesting, and I don't like to not know. I'm a big planner. I like to plan ahead. I don't have the whole picture right now. I know when we were talking about this, there was a question that came across. I don't remember who asked it, but they had some fans ask some questions. And one of them was, what is your 5-year plan? Like, where do you see yourself in 5 years? And I can tell you this, in my life I've been asked that a handful of questions, and every time I get asked that question, I cringe. I feel I hate it. I'm not saying a 5-year plan is not for somebody, but it's not for me. Because it's like a loaded question. For me, I feel like I'm setting myself up for failure if I have this 5-year plan. I can't even think of what I'm doing next week, never mind 5 years from now. You know what I mean? So I just think that the biggest thing about that is leave room for God. If you're looking for what's next, you have to. I'm walking in faith every day. I don't know what's around the corner, but I can guarantee you that God has me. He's leading my steps, and that's all that matters to me. So there's a contentment in that. And you can make up a plan, but if you know that, that's where peace comes.
You and I talked about when we walk off this stage, what do you want to make sure gets from your heart into their heart? And you said, Tim, it's all about Christ. I want them to know they can break generational patterns, and that I'm not home yet, man. I just want Christ to be formed in me. Paul, I'm going to toss it over to you. I want you to speak to these guys. And they're here. And some of them are facing big challenges in their life. Some of them, in the midst of midlife, they're trying to make some hard decisions. Some of them have conflict with their dad, with their son, with people close to them. Let's take it on.
Yeah, I think, like I said before, for me, the biggest game changer is transparency to God. When you start to give up the things that are holding you down, it has a trickle effect. So if you're a father and you start to give up these things that you might think are important but really aren't, or are pulling you away from what God has for you, you need to start to give that stuff up. And again, that's a process, and everyone here is at a different place in their walk, or maybe they don't know Christ, and that's what this is all about. That's what I'm doing up here, just sharing with you my testimony, where I come from, my background, and what God has done in my life. I just want men to be encouraged, man. This is, I just feel like, be encouraged. Know that just because I sit up here and I've had a television show and am well known, that's not the end game here. That's not where contentment comes from. It doesn't come from success and money and television or anything like that. It comes from that raw, true, honest relationship with Christ. And I'll tell you this, when you start to seek that, God will meet you there. Wherever you are, no matter how bad things are, He will meet you right where you live. I promise you. And here's the deal, when it comes to relationships, it's a trickle down. If you get your priorities straight, it will fall into place. Because you can't do it before that. You can't put the cart before the horse. You have to do things in the proper order, and you'll see things will just start to change for you. And I've seen it in my life, and let me tell you, when I sit here and talk to you guys, I'm just like, I'm you. I'm just you. I'm the same as you are, and I'm under construction, and nothing is perfect, and you just got to keep striving forward. So I would just encourage you that you can do it.
Amen. Hey, you guys, make sure to check out Paul's bikes up there. I think you're going to hang out for a little while. He's going to hang out for a little bit. You guys make sure to say hey to him. If you appreciate Paul Connell Jr., stand for Christ. Let him know. I'm going to talk.
I just want to say, guys, thanks for having me out. I've done some speaking stuff, but never all been like this. And you know, I love you guys. I just want to encourage you guys, keep it up, keep forging forward. I know it's not always easy out there as men in this world and all the responsibilities that we have. But like I said, man, just rely on Christ, he'll get you through.
Amen.